Hello, friends and family, and welcome to another episode of the If You Could See Me podcast, Saturday morning coffee and conversation. We are back in the new year. It is 2022. I can't really fully believe that it's already 2022. Part of me feels like we are still in March of 2020 and we have just been on pause. So I am super excited to be back with everybody in the new year. We have lots to talk about. First and foremost, however, I am so excited to introduce my guest for today, Justine Evirs. Justine, you came to me from the prophet Heather Pate from Robin's Hope in Richmond. And when Heather tells me that I need to meet somebody, I say, okay, yes, absolutely. No questions asked. And then I went to your page and I saw the amazing work that you're doing. And I definitely felt like I had to talk to you. So welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here and talk to your audience and get to know you and the people that listen to you.
So tell me a little bit about you have this amazing book coming out in the beginning of April. It's pre-orders available now. It's called Fuck This, Permission Granted, which, bold title. And I'm excited to hear about it. So tell everybody, how you got here, what's in the book.
Yeah, it's funny that you say bold title because I had been advised to change that name along the entire writing and publishing process. And I've kind of stood my ground with it and said, no, like this is the title and we're just going to roll with it. So I think the reason why this is the title is because I use my real voice in this book. I really use a really raw and authentic, almost like my inner voice, that voice that doesn't get heard, that voice that I suppressed for decades that I didn't think was appropriate to share with the world. That's the voice that I use in this book. And I chose to write the book, not only for my own healing journey, but also to kind of open myself up to the world in service to other women healing with me. Because I found that I've had a lot of difficult experiences that I would find comfort in that one friend that went through it as well, but they were still suffering in silence. And so that I would find comfort in.
I'm sorry. We're having some technical issues. Please forgive me.
It's okay.
Right, there we go. There you go.
So I just wanted to write this book to kind of share those raw experiences using the word fuck and using curse words, and because there's a lot of anger involved in those experiences. And share them, but then also share what has worked for me throughout the process of healing. And then kind of call to action for other women to kind of join me in that. I share my personal email address in the book. I invite women to email me along the way while they're reading it. I want and hope to build relationships with the readers and eventually building a community of readers that are doing this work around the world. And it's funny, I mentioned that I'm not a therapist yet in the book. And now I'm on this journey already back to school, working in the mental health space, working my way towards becoming a therapist. And that's happened a lot sooner than I expected, hence why my schedule's been really hectic lately. So yeah, I'm happy to get into more details about the topics that are in the book, but I'll stop there to see if you have any questions.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm definitely feel very, a kindred with you. We have, I think, somewhat similar healing journeys in that, writing and, speaking out has been a really big part of my journey as well. And I too, worked in the mental health field and then returned to the school to finish my master's degree and become a therapist and, now occupy that space. And so, it feels very much like we were intended to meet.
Yeah. Yeah.
On this path. And so I love the idea of, the sort of calling forward the intensity of our language and sort of claiming the power of that, especially as women, because we are so frequently sort of socialized to be so polite and so genteel. And, for me, definitely growing up in the South, that was a real thing is, it's not ladylike to say fuck. It's not ladylike
Right.
to use bad language. And I always felt it to be incredibly empowering and, am a proud potty mouth. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm curious about, that part of the journey for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'll show you. I actually just got an advanced copy, and the reason why the cover is the way that it is, make sure this is in the so
It's there.
the reason
All
why
right.
it is because I'm taking duct tape off of my mouth. So it's me in this presence of this leather bodysuit, but also
Mhm.
these pearls of like this traditional woman.
Right.
And then it's like me in this pouring rain and this messy hair that's like soaking. I can't figure this out. This
There you
soaking
go.
wet.
You got
There you
it.
go. I'm soaking wet and I'm just taking this duct tape off as the vision. And that duct tape symbolizes me like I'm using my voice. I'm
Mhm.
done with this. Women are going through these things that I've gone through all over the world. We live in America where we actually get to use our voice. There are other countries that don't, but women are rising as leaders all over the world. And now is the time for us to show that, in a way, I felt like we're not the crazy ones. We're going
Mhm.
through a lot. And it's very
Mhm.
easy to kind of pin women as the crazy one or the out of control one when they use these swear words or, stepping out of line or, not being, um, what's the word I want to look for? Just kind of not fitting into that box
Mhm.
that society wants us to fit into. They kind of
Yeah.
like to play the something must be wrong with you card.
Right.
And my book is kind of like, yeah, there is something wrong because I experience these things in our perfect society. But the reality is that if you experience this too, you'd be experiencing things in the same way. And it's almost kind of bringing up that equity conversation.
Mhm.
Women have to go through childbirth and men don't,
Mhm.
so I always like to say that we have this idea of weakness for
Mhm.
women, and
Mhm.
the reality is we're not talking about we can grow human beings and give birth. We're not talking about, I talk openly in this book about being a rape survivor and what that
Mhm.
feels like moving forward in life and what that does to us. And we're not talking about what that does to us as human beings after something like that happens to us. We just kind of
Mhm.
live in this world where stay positive, you know, keep doing what you're doing, and
Right.
we've created this narrative of as long as you're continuing to achieve and be productive and work hard and smile, then you're winning.
Right.
And the reality is that I lived my whole life thinking that was true,
Mhm.
but I still felt disgusting inside.
Mhm.
And no one else could see these things and hear these things except for me. And that happened for decades and decades. And I took on habits of self medicating with alcohol, self medicating with food, and, disastrous behaviors. And my mental health declined over decades of holding all of that inside. So I share that journey through alcohol and fear and being somebody that I'm not truly am my relationship with food, my relationship with sex, my relationship with spirit, with, the universe and God and religion. I talk about
Mhm.
all of these really tough topics um, because I think the world's craving that. I know I was. And so my
Yeah.
hope is there's other people out here craving that
Yes.
and can maybe find a friend in me from the comfort of their home.
Absolutely. And there are, it's it's so interesting because when I wrote my first one woman show I produced it back in 2014, and got up on the stage and talked about, all of my stories and, my family history with serious mental illness and, my own challenges. And it was terrifying to do that the first
Mhm.
time. And, I didn't know what I was going to be met with. And certainly I was met by, people saying, why do you feel the need to do this? And,
Right.
doesn't it make you feel afraid that, this is how people are going to see you? And, but more than that, it was, thank you so much for s-
Right.
creating a container for this, by doing it, giving permission to,
Mhm.
to me to, you know, share my own experience, to talk about my own family, to, feel okay about the pain that I've been carrying around for all these years. Um, and it was very apparent to me in that experience that, we really were craving this, the silence was too much
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
had been going on for too long. And
I would agree, too long.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it's really manifested into a crisis
Mhm.
and COVID has really exacerbated that.
Yes, it does.
And I don't think it's a coincidence that, this book is coming out as we roll into our 3rd year into the pandemic.
Mhm,
And I think everyone's, denial of feelings has bubbled to the surface. There's
mhm,
really we have no choice. It's really almost becoming a way of survival. Those who are being honest with themselves and their feelings and taking steps to actually process those things, even if it happened 30 years ago.
mhm,
The brain still needs to process those things. And um, if it has been that long, you've probably developed some really inappropriate coping skills. I know I did. I
mhm,
really did. I had zero emotion. I'm workaholic, alcoholic, binge eater.
mhm.
I really struggled with these things and was recently diagnosed even with bipolar and kind of going through that mental illness journey as well. PTSD, all these different things that the day that I asked for help with alcohol 4 years ago opened the door to all these other things that I had no idea. I thought, I just need help with drinking. I didn't
Right.
understand that I was medicating all of these other things. And so, even through writing this book, memories came back to me in writing this book. There's things in this book that no one knows. There's things in this book that I hadn't shared with anybody until I wrote it.
Yeah.
And really, still, the only person that knows is my husband and my therapist. So, there is a lot of fear in releasing this book.
Mhm.
Um, but something is telling me to push forward because I know that my experiences are not my own. I know that, or they're my own, but I know that I'm not
They're
alone.
not alone, right.
Yeah.
I remember the day back in the end of 2017 when I got the first, advance copy of my book, and
Mm.
I remember being completely excited and almost simultaneously going, "Oh shit, now they're gonna know.
Mhm, mhm.
Now
Totally.
everybody's gonna know." And, like,
Mhm.
just in this moment, like, I have, like, chills. Like, it's this otherworldly experience, even though I had spent years on stages telling everybody all my business.
Yep.
There's something about, seeing it in this is mine, seeing it all tacked up in the pages, and you go, "Oh gosh, this is really real."
Mhm. Yeah, I would that's my experience for sure. And I've been sharing my journey, Well, to be honest, I think it's really terrifying because I've been really open about my alcoholism.
Mhm.
4 years ago, I was in a very different position than I was now. I was in a position of leadership. I ran a global nonprofit. I
Mm.
was in executive level positions, around the country, and I was a well-established leader within the military community and veteran services. And I spoke out about my alcoholism, and I've been on multiple podcasts and have really used that to encourage others to ask for help, but also thank people for supporting me through that journey.
Mhm.
Um, Made a lot of amends about, some of my leadership philosophies during that time were a little I don't know what I want to say, the word, like, they were disheveled. They
Mhm.
really weren't out of compassion. They
Mhm.
were more ego driven.
Yeah.
So I worked really hard to repair a lot of that. And as I uncovered each layer in my recovery, the most recent layer has been diagnosed with bipolar. And I
Mhm.
haven't really spoke out a lot about that mental illness. I've done that. It's kind of landed me into the mental health space. And my job as a peer recovery specialist is to share that experience, strength, and hope. And I do that professionally, but I haven't really built anything online. And so sharing that in this book alongside uh, sexual assault and kind of the dysfunction family dynamics is something that I really haven't shared that is in this book that I think a lot of people will be able to relate to.
Yeah.
I share that denial aspect of going to the psychiatrist and someone telling me, this is what I need and the medication and the emotions that are running through my head because I can imagine, it's one step to say, I need help or I need some other opinion, but it's another to accept a diagnosis
Yeah.
of some sort. And so, kind of addressing that stigma around that was really important to me.
Yeah. The stigma that exists out there, but also the internalized stigma that we carry around that, you know, I
Totally.
I'm curious about your experience as a high achiever
Mhm.
and how that, that plays into the the whole process. I and this is my experience that, I spent my whole life trying to earn my worth and trying to feel, like you said, not disgusting inside. And
Mhm.
um so I'm curious about that journey for you.
Yeah, I have found that the more I heal and the more that I'm honest with myself, that's a common
Mhm.
theme throughout this book is honesty and really getting out of the mindset of denial
Mhm.
and blaming others and really
Yeah.
just like looking at our part. I have found that the more I do that work, um, the less I need others' validation. And that's power.
Mhm.
That's power that every woman wants, that we strive for. Um, but it takes a lot of work to get there. And I think the door that opens that kingdom, the keys that open that kingdom are really sitting down, slowing down,
Mhm.
and saying, I'm not happy in these areas. I'm happy in these areas. These things don't feel good. These things feel good.
Mhm.
And kind of breaking our expectations. I talk about expectations a lot. I have expectations to be a size 4 for the rest of my life and not age. I have expectations to have home cooked meals on the table every day. That's not the reality. And so sometimes our expectations create sadness for us.
Mhm.
We because we put this pressure on ourselves, or we think society's putting this pressure on ourselves, but we forget that we have the right to choose.
That's right.
And I think we need more female leaders. I think we have a lot of people speaking out about that,
Me too.
but I don't think we're encouraging people to take the next step, which is, sure, if you don't want to make home cooked meals, don't make home cooked meals, but don't ignore the feelings it brings up for you,
Right.
right? We've taken the step of like body positivity and this idea of motherhood and women, but we're not taking it to the next. Now it's time to take it to the next step and ask ourselves why. Why didn't that feel good, or why does this feel better? Um, you know, in the book as I'm writing, I'm like, oh my God, I think I have daddy issues, like in this book, in the moment, I'm like, oh my God, I think this
Right.
is what we call daddy issues. I'm like seeking approval from my father. Like, who knew? That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Like, why are these expectations the way they are?
Yeah.
You know, getting to the root of that.
Hmm. Absolutely. Well, and understanding that, we all have a set of internal, you know, in narrative therapy, they call it like your group, or
Mhm.
you're like the committee of voices, or who are your cheerleaders, and are your cheerleaders cheering you on, or are they telling you that you suck? And
Right.
can you remember that group, right? Like, can you get rid of those people and bring in the voices of the people that
Yeah.
you know are giving you, affirmations and positive reinforcement, and, helping you to see the good that you are and that you do in the world, and not that sort of constant negative internal dialogue.
Mhm.
And uh, it's true, so whether it's seeking your dad's approval, or your mom's approval, or your third grade teacher's approval, or your grandmother's approval, or we all have that person
Mhm.
that we need to earn their.
Right. And I think I take a really deeper look at like the generational information and trauma
Yeah.
that were being passed down. I
Yep.
think I really take a look at like I have these expectations because I was raised in a house that does these things this way. So this is normal to me, but I've never challenged those things or thought, well, what do I want? We
Right.
just kind of go with the flow. And another thing that I address is like, um, there's a lot of facts about how people have found rape survivors, some of these things that happen after the fact. Like we don't talk about some of the behaviors that happen after. And I feel like knowledge is power. When we know that X amount of people experience this after experiencing something traumatic like this, or when I talk about binge eating disorder. When I think about an eating disorder, I think of bulimia and anorexia. I don't think of binge eating.
Hmm.
I kind of think of the blonde, skinny cheerleader. I don't think of someone like me who's biracial, brown woman, kind of, eating ridiculous amounts of food to cope with my feelings. I don't think that. That's not what I thought about when I was younger. But what we don't know is that these things exist. If you don't have access to mental health and you're not growing up in an environment where these things are talked about, you just don't know. And so I share my journey of, you know, statistically, the zip code that I grew up in, I statistically should be in jail or on welfare, with multiple children and, probably a felony record and et cetera. And these things are not talked about in those environments, whereas they're the people that need it the most. So there's a lot of things that seem basic in this book that is like, oh, I've heard this a million times. Well, it wasn't written for the reader that already knows this stuff.
Right.
It was really written for the reader that lives in this bubble and is suffering every day that doesn't have access to people on their news feed like you or I that are talking about these things. They only have access to people who are participating in the very behaviors that are killing them on a daily basis. My hope is that this book will find those people. And my hope is that, that's why I put my personal email address in there. I want to be that one person that opens that door for them. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
I have no doubt that you are going to reach so many people, and that you are going to be a voice they can, find solace in and solidarity in, and, feel safe to ask more questions. That's one of the big thing is just, helping someone to reach a point where they go, oh, it's okay for me to inquire further. It's okay for me to not understand what's going on. It's okay for me to anticipate change, or that there could be a different path for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, that is the gift that I know that you are going to give to people. I know that you have have to get to a work situation this morning, and so we are on a limited time schedule. Can you, in our last minute or two, tell folks where they can find you so that we can all get a copy of your book when it's released?
Yeah. So you can find me at Justine Evirs, which is my name is below.com. It's probably the easiest way to find me and order my book today, but you can also check it out on Amazon and Barnes and Noble online. It's available for pre-order. If you pre-order it on my website, you get a signed copy. If you pre-order it on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, they'll just ship it directly to you. But if you order through my website, you get a signed copy, and it will be available in your local stores, on bookshelves in your local community, hopefully. Kind of fingers crossed there. There's a lot of chatter going on behind the scenes about where it will be located. April 5th. April 5th
Amazing.
is the release date. And if anybody wanted to connect with me personally, Instagram and LinkedIn is probably the best way to do that. Okay. My profile on Instagram is at Justine Evirs, and LinkedIn is a good space to find me as well in the professional arena.
Great. And we will put all of that in the show notes. This will be re-released on our Facebook page this morning, and it will be on the If You Could See Me podcast podcast feed in the next week. So everybody
Awesome.
will be able to find you. And thank you so much for joining us this morning, and we will see you on March 5th for our coffee and conversation with Calendria Arroyo. Have a great day, everybody.